The day you brought your cat home, you thought you were making a decision. You weren't. Your cat was. There's a moment most cat owners remember. It's usually in the first week. The cat is new, still exploring, still quiet. And then you notice something. She's not wandering randomly. She's watching, measuring, taking notes. Most people chalk it up to nerves, adjustment period. What behavioral researchers have found is something far more deliberate. For decades, the assumption was that cats simply tolerate us, that they're solitary, indifferent, and fundamentally uninterested in social dynamics. That assumption is wrong. What ethologists have documented is that domestic cats, over thousands of years of living alongside humans, have developed a remarkably precise system for integrating into a new household. They read hierarchies, they identify leverage points, and they build bonds with surgical patience. In the next few minutes, we're going to walk through exactly how that system works. The scan phase, the targeting, the tools they use, and what the science says about why those tools work on us so reliably. And by the end of this, the way your cat looked at you in those first few days is going to mean something completely different. Point 1, the scan. Your cat doesn't need a week to settle in. She needs 72 hours to map everything. Research from the University of Lincoln has documented that cats entering new environments don't explore randomly. They conduct what ethologists call a territorial audit. They're not looking for hiding spots. They're reading the household's social architecture. Who moves first in the morning? Who responds to sound? Who controls access to food? Who sits where? Who makes eye contact and who avoids it? Within 3 days, a cat has typically identified the room hierarchy, the daily routine structure, and, most critically, the emotional temperature of every person in the household. This is not instinct in the vague sense. It's learned behavior refined over roughly 10,000 years of cohabitation with humans. Cats that read households accurately ate better and survived longer. The ones alive today are their descendants. What this means for you, those first few days when your cat seemed quiet and distant. She wasn't distant. She was paying closer attention to your family than anyone else in the room. Point 2, the target. Here's where it gets interesting. Once a cat has mapped the household, she doesn't start with the most receptive person. She starts with the most resistant one. This is consistent enough across behavioral observations that researchers have a name for the phenomenon: the avoidance paradox. The family member who ignores the cat, crosses their arms, says, "I'm not really a cat person." That person becomes the primary focus. The reason is counterintuitive. Cats are not wired to seek approval. They're wired to seek safety. And a person who is indifferent is, to a cat, an unresolved variable, an unknown, something that hasn't been classified yet. A 2020 study from Oregon State University confirmed that cats actively approach people who look away and ignore them, and retreat from people who lean in with direct attention. The person trying hardest to connect gets the least access. The person pretending not to care gets chosen. The dad who announced he doesn't like cats. The teenager who barely looks up from their phone. The roommate who said she's more of a dog person. These are not people the cat is avoiding. These are the cat's first priority. The campaign begins quietly. A proximity, a slow approach. Eventually, a single, deliberate contact. And the most resistant person in the room finds themselves, 2 weeks later, sending the cat photos to people they haven't texted in months. If this is already sounding familiar, subscribe, because we're just getting started. And what comes next is the part most people have experienced, but never had explained to them. Point 3, the tools. Once the target is identified, the approach begins. And cats have access to a set of behavioral tools that are, from an evolutionary standpoint, almost unfairly effective on humans. The first is the solicitation purr. In 2009, Dr. Karen McComb at the University of Sussex recorded cats purring in 2 different contexts: when they were content and when they were actively seeking something from their owner. The acoustic analysis revealed something hidden inside the hungry purr, a high-frequency cry embedded within the lower frequencies of the standard purr. At around 380 Hz, almost exactly the frequency range of a human infant's cry. Humans, even people who have never owned a cat, rated these purrs as significantly more urgent and harder to ignore than regular purring. The response is not learned, it's wired. We are neurologically primed to respond to that frequency. McComb's conclusion was precise. Cats who spend significant time with one person learn to exaggerate this component when it gets results. They don't know why it works. They know that it does. The second tool is the slow blink. Research published in Scientific Reports in 2020, the first controlled study of its kind, confirmed that slow blinking functions as a positive affiliative signal between cats and humans. Cats slow blinked more frequently at humans who slow blinked back, and approached them faster than humans who held a neutral gaze. In cat social communication, a sustained unblinking stare is a threat. The slow blink is the deliberate opposite. It's the visual equivalent of saying, "I am not a danger to you, and you are not a danger to me." When a cat slow blinks at you, they have made a decision to signal safety. And your instinct to soften, to feel something, is the correct response. Point 4, the routine. Once the initial bond is established, the cat begins the second phase of household integration. Structure. Cats are not creatures of chaos. They are, behaviorally speaking, creatures of extreme precision. Research on feline circadian behavior consistently shows that cats don't just adapt to household routines, they memorize and anticipate them. Feeding times, sleep cycles, the sound of a specific alarm. The reason is neurological. Predictability reduces cortisol in cats. A household with consistent patterns registers as safe. A household with erratic rhythms registers as threatening. Cats don't relax into chaos. They impose order onto it, which is how the household alarm clock gets replaced. It starts gently. The cat appears near the bed a few minutes before the usual wake time, then on the bed, then on the pillow, then, if the human has failed to respond to more subtle signals, directly on the face. This is not aggression, it's maintenance. The cat has determined what time this household operates. She has incorporated that into her own internal schedule, and when the schedule slips, she corrects it. What looks like demanding behavior is, from the cat's perspective, contribution. She is holding the structure that keeps everyone safe. Point 5, the reframe. Here's what all of this actually means. The word we reach for is manipulation, and on one level, it fits. The solicitation purr is designed to produce a response. The avoidance paradox is a form of social engineering. The routine enforcement is a gentle but consistent assertion of control. But Dr. Kristen Vitale at Unity College, who has studied cat attachment for over a decade, makes a different argument. In her 2019 study, 108 cats assessed using the same secure attachment framework developed for human infants. 64% of cats showed secure attachment to their owner, not tolerance, not dependency, attachment. The same behavioral pattern seen in children who trust their caregivers. Cats don't form this bond with everyone. They form it with the people they have chosen. The scan wasn't surveillance, it was assessment. The approach to the resistant family member wasn't manipulation, it was an investment. The purr wasn't deception, it was communication in the only shared language available. The fact that your cat identified the most guarded person in your household and patiently built trust with them anyway, that's not a takeover. That's the most deliberate form of connection in the room. The day you brought your cat home, you thought you were making a decision. You were, but so was she. She looked at your household. She read everyone in it. She chose who needed her most, and she started there. She built a structure that made her feel safe, and in doing so, made the people around her feel it too. That's not a cat who tolerates you. That's a cat who picked you. If you want to know how to read what your cat is actually communicating back to you, the specific signals she uses every day that most owners completely miss, and what they tell you about how she really sees you, that's the next video. There's one behavior in particular that almost every cat owner misinterprets, and when you understand what it actually means, it changes everything.